It's time for game night. A look at all of the high school football games set for this weekend across the Central Susquehanna Valley.
Hello and welcome to Week 7 of our Game Night High School Football Podcast. I'm Daily Item Sports Editor Kurt Ritzman, and I'm joined by lead football writer Todd Hummel.
I was going to say 16 seconds into it, breaking news.
What you got?
Shockingly, Southern Columbia, Wyoming area is off. We're going back to Southern Columbia and Shikellamy and Wyoming area and Holy Redeemer, which is odd to me because Southern Columbia changed another game that they have not played yet, but it doesn't seem like they're making them switch that one. But don't know much more than that or why, so read the paper tomorrow when we figure more of this out. But yeah, that just happened not more than 10 minutes ago. So yeah, so I don't understand what the impetus behind this was. I think it was we heard about it yesterday morning that it was starting to break.
Yep.
And it's interesting to find out why this wasn't okay, but Montoursville in Southern Columbia is okay. But again,
or Southern and Hammond is okay.
Well, that was already played. There's not much.
Nothing you can do about that.
Yeah, we
now?
can't get in a time machine. I don't think Stewie's time machine is real. So, yeah, it's kind of an odd situation. Again, if you're listening to this on Thursday, hopefully we'll probably know more in the paper on Thursday morning. But yeah, it seems like it broke yesterday that this was in the works, and it came out about 20 minutes ago that the game was off. I don't think it's very fair to Schick or Holy Redeemer just, for the fact that both teams are probably now going to
lose
and, and they had a good competitive game there for a chance for them to, play each other. But, again, we'll have to figure out what's going on there.
So your column about getting back to just focused on the field, I don't think
I knocked on wood.
Not hard enough.
I literally knocked on wood.
How about what stuck out to you on the field from Week 6?
Mount Carmel was out of Mount Carmel from Mount Carmel and Mifflinburg. They, I think it was over 10 yards per play for them.
Wow.
For the game. Shane Widener had 172 yards on 8 carries. They really gashed that Mifflinburg defense with big plays. I think it was 5 touchdowns of 40 yards or more last week. It was 4 or 5. I think the Red Tornadoes aren't anywhere in the state rankings in Class 2A, and I think they kind of get, I think we talk a lot about this, that they kind of get overlooked just because they end up, with Southern Columbia in Class 2A. But it was a really good football team. They did a great job in the first half of slowing down the Mifflinburg running game. I am left to wonder if Mason Breed is ready to play, is able to play in that second half after getting nicked up in the first half. If the second half does go a little differently, Mifflinburg was down 14 points with the ball to start the half. If they could get something going there, maybe something different happens. But all credit to Mount Carmel, who took control of the game and who really needed that win. And I talked to Shane Widener after the game about that.
It really seems like you guys were trying to attack the middle of the field, especially after that first drive. Is that something you guys had seen on film, or is that more during the game?
It just progressed. We did that during the week. Just wanted to just run the ball right as we always do. Just keep running and running and running.
You guys feel like you had to come out and prove something tonight again after last week?
Yes, after that loss, it felt like we had to make a statement game, and I feel that tonight was our statement game.
And then, they were able to move the ball a little bit on you in the first half. What did you guys change up in the second half to kind of...
We just changed up some of our coverage, and once we did that, and we emphasized about their running backs hit them all, 11 guys, right to the ball, and it worked out great.
How about Shikellamy going on that long road trip to Mill Hall and putting it on the Wildcats 50-14 for their first win of the season?
Getting all the plugs in right in the first 4 minutes, aren't we? Yeah, the Braves went up to Central Mountain. I think we both picked Shikellamy last week. I think more of the surprise is the 50 points that they put on the board, especially for an offense that has really struggled the last 2 seasons. Drew Balestrini, who is going to be our cover story this week, threw for 3 touchdowns and 180 yards in a career best game. And the genesis of that story is Drew's actual first start as quarterback was last year's win at at Central Mountain, and he had actually never played quarterback in a game before until that game.
Oh, my
So
goodness.
check that out on Friday in game night. And the Braves have an interesting homecoming game with Lewisburg this week. We'll talk a little bit more about that after the break. But with Lewisburg's injuries, Max Moyers was hurt on Saturday night. That becomes a much different game for the Braves.
Since you mentioned that, let's talk about their game last week a little bit. You were going to go on Saturday night. Weather had other plans. Game didn't end up kicking off until after 8:30. But Lewisburg...
Another lightning delay in the first quarter.
Yeah. Lewisburg, without Max for most of it, had a nice performance in a 31-10 win over Bloomsburg.
And, this is where Nick Shedleski comes into play, having a 4-year starter at quarterback. They did, obviously, the first 2 or 3 drives after that, they struggled a little bit offensively, without their star running back. But, they bounced back. Nick threw 2 touchdowns. Their defense played well, only allowed 10 points to the Bloomsburg Panthers, shut down the short passing game I call them the Black Panthers, the Panthers. And, what time did we get the game? Like 11:30. I think it was over at 11:25.
11:27.
The only game I can remember like that was, I think it was like 15 years ago, because Jake's Felix daughters just turned 15, and it was around the night she was born, and we sat out there with lightning until out at Southern and Loyalsock almost 11:30 because of lightning.
Oh my goodness.
But it's interesting to see. I mean, Lewisburg is certainly much more than Max Moyers. I mean, depending on how long he's out. So it's going to see how they balance that this week.
We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, GDK Development, and then we're going to dive into the 11 Week 7 games we have.
GDK Development of Shamokin is a proud supporter of all local and youth sports. The Welsh family has been in business for 37 years and thanks you for supporting them and their local businesses, including Bruiser Sports Grill in Cole Township and the Elysburg and Sunbury Burger King restaurants. Again, thank you for 37 years of support and good luck area athletes and teams this sports season from the Welsh family and GDK Development of Shamokin.
Okay, let's jump into our Week 7 games. An interesting game to me. Danville's 4-2, coming off a bad loss to Central Columbia.
I was going to say probably their worst performance of the season.
Yeah, headed to undefeated Montoursville. This is a game I was real excited about before the Ironman performance last week.
Sound like you were looking for a phrase.
I was going to say laid an egg or something like that, but I thought that might be a little mean. But I want to see how they bounce back against a good Warriors team on the road.
And and somebody they probably owe something to for that beat down that Montoursville put on them in the district final last year. Watching that Danville game got a chance to see it on TV after work last Friday night. Their line struggled with Central Columbia up front, and it certainly does not get any easier with Montoursville, whose line is probably the second best in the area behind, or third best between Southern, Mount Carmel, and Montoursville this season, and that's going to be a pretty tough matchup for Danville. They did not do the great job of protecting KJ Riley last week. He had 1 interception coming into the game and ended up with 3 last week. So, it's going to be, if they can protect KJ and can score some points, they got a chance to hang in this game. But, Montoursville is just so balanced. They're going to throw Logan Ott and the Paluzzi kid in the backfield at you, Jackson Delina on the outside, Hunter Shearer, is a 3-year starter at quarterback to go along with that offensive line. And that makes them so tough. And, I think Montoursville stays undefeated and we're waiting around for, as far as we know, it's still happening, the Montoursville Southern Columbia game.
We talked about Mifflinburg a little bit, coming off a tough loss. Still 4-2, still having a real nice season. Headed to 3-3 Loyalsock in what seems like another important game for them if they're going to take that next step and be real contenders this year.
Well, and this is that stretch of games we talked last week. Mount Carmel, Loyalsock, and then Montoursville next week. The Wildcats. It's a lot of similarities to Mifflinburg's performance on Friday night and what Lewisburg did out at the Silver Bowl, and the fact that they couldn't, turnovers really hurt them, mistakes hurt them, and really took them out of their game. I'm interested to see how they bounce back this week. This is, Loyal Sox struggled with turnovers and big plays last week against Selinsgrove. Lost 30-13 to the Seals. I think Mifflinburg gets this one, but this is kind of the perfect matchup for them this week, just in the fact that this is real measuring stick for them to see, how good they are this season, and then, what kind of contender they can be in the 3A playoffs when that rolls around at the end of 4 weeks already.
I think a big thing is how healthy Mason Breed is also.
Well, yeah, that's pretty huge, and it didn't appear to be super serious, not to speculate or anything, but enough to keep him out for the half. But it didn't look like it was anything all that serious.
Let's jump to Selinsgrove, who you mentioned beat Loyal Sock last week. They're headed out to Shamokin. Shamokin is coming off a loss to Jersey Shore. Not quite as disappointing as Seals lost to Jersey Shore earlier in the year, but Shore's a tough team for them to play. So I feel like that's a kind of a key Hack 1 game, even with teams that are combined 5 and 7.
And the Seals, right? I think it was last year that this was kind of where Shamokin kind of took its step forward, where they really hammered the Seals at Bolick Field on Selinsgrove's homecoming, and ended up using that starting that push to win a district playoff game. Again, we talked last week about the Indian struggles running the ball. That did not improve at all against Jersey Shore. That's going to be a big thing to watch for in this game with the Seals. Selinsgrove's defense the last 2 weeks against Berwick and against Loyal Sock has really played well. I think that continues. They scored the only touchdown for them against Berwick. If you look at the numbers, the yardage numbers, Loyal Sock outgained Selinsgrove by over 100, I think. But the Seals defense was able to turn them over twice, get 2 long returns, and the special teams played a huge role. And right now that's really helping Selinsgrove win games. I think they get this one on the road just for the sheer fact of what happened last year, and I'm pretty sure the Seals remember that 44-8 game last year. But we talked 3 weeks ago that it was hard to get a read on this Shamokin team.
Yes.
And, they've been throwing the ball around, and it's just really strange to me that after establishing that run early, that they haven't really been able to run the ball at all these last 6 weeks.
We've talked about Jersey Shore. They're 4-2. Nice win over Shamokin, a real nice win over Selinsgrove. A couple weeks ago, Mount Carmel kind of handled them. And then this week they host Southern, who handled Mount Carmel.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I'm interested to see is how this defense handles Tanner Lawson, who is probably the best running, throwing threat that they've faced all season so far. Okay. He's thrown for 1,300 yards already this season, and has at least 2 games over 100 yards rushing already this season. Note somebody has scored on Southern Columbia. Yep. It was only 6 points last week finally, but this Tigers team has just been rolling. Julian Fleming is now the all-time yardage leader and touchdown leader, receiving touchdown leader in Pennsylvania, to add to the accolades that he has, and what Gage is the all-time rushing touchdown leader and total touchdown leader in the state of Pennsylvania. So, just another record-breaking day for the Tigers, but they should probably roll in this one. That's a heck of a road trip, but
sure.
Maybe a slow start for the Tigers, but
probably not.
And talking last week with a couple of coaches, it is amazing to me in this run that as dominant as they have been, that other than maybe this, which is weird to say, that first half of the state final was maybe the only game that they didn't come out at the top of their game to start, which is, with the way they're dominating teams, is really a credit to them.
They had a first round district game against North Penn Mansfield where they were behind 8-6 early, I think.
Well, yeah. 2 games in 37 is pretty impressive, especially with how some of these, how they match up with some of these 2-4 and 0-6 teams.
Are other records on the way? Catches for Julian, rushing yards for Gage, or are those going to be out of reach?
I think both are pretty. It's tough to say out of reach just because they play 16 games. They're probably going to play 16 games, but I I think Julian's up to 211 catches, and I think the record's 242 by Brian I forget how to say the last name, from Bishop McDevitt, maybe in the early part or the late 2000s on one of their teams. So that might be the only record that that Julian doesn't leave with. And I forget what the state rushing record is off the top of my head, but it's up over 8,000 yards, and I think Gage is just at 7,500. So if it happens, it's coming in the state playoffs.
Okay. An interesting game to me. Bloomsburg 2-4 has had some good performances, has had some not so great performances against our teams. Headed to Warrior Run 3-3, who snapped a 3-game losing skid with a nice shutout win over Hughesville last week.
I think like this, like the Mifflinburg Loyalsock game, I think this is kind of a measuring stick game for Warrior Run, where we find out how good they are. You know, this Bloomsburg team has played a tough schedule. You know, Lewisburg is, they're 2A. Lewisburg's 3A. They played Lewisburg. They've played an undefeated Newman Goretti team that has a good chance to see Southern Columbia at some point in the state playoffs. Mifflinburg's 4-2. So this is a team that has played a tough schedule and has been in games with some teams that Warrior Run has lost to. So this is kind of a measuring stick game for the defenders. I don't think they come out like they did in that Mifflinburg game.
I hope not, for their sake.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the closer games of the weekend. I think I'm going to go with Warrior Run just because of a little bit more big playability with Riley Dahlbert. But it's going to be tough for them. Lewisburg struggled to run the ball. South Williamsport struggled to run the ball against that Bloomsburg defense, which isn't very big but is pretty quick. So it'll be, keep an eye on how Warrior Run's able to move the ball on the ground. Seems like they've gone back to more of a two-back deal. They were running Hoyt Bauer before he got hurt at the beginning of the season as more of just as a lone running back. But in that game on Friday night, Denver Beetrell and he seemed to split time. So it looks like the defenders want to go back and get the running game going, and it's going to be that's a tough task against that Panthers defense.
The last time I talked to Coach Long, which has been a few weeks now, he'd mentioned that Denver Beetrell was beat up to start, wasn't 100% at the start of the year, so that could have been why they started off with more of a feature back.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Let's jump out. Oh no, we got one more hack game. I skipped over it because it's Mount Carmel 4-2 headed to winless Hughesville, and I think there's probably as much use breaking that down as a Southern Columbia game.
Yeah, probably. Again, Mount Carmel's going to go up there, want to get out of there healthy, and keep that running game going. They've been playing really well since that no school, looking to keep playing well after that no Schuylkill loss and bouncing back against Mifflinburg, and I think they finished with Bloomsburg, and just be prepared for the ever-present coal bucket in Week 10.
Now we'll jump out of the hack. Midwest 2-4 has played probably its 3 toughest opponents in its last 3 games. Get a bit of a reprieve this week, headed to 2-4 Nativity, a team that Millersburg beat in Week 1 to snap their 31-game losing streak.
Yeah, and man, Aaron Tobias put up some numbers last week for Penns Valley.
Oh my goodness!
It was 513 yards and 7 touchdowns. 1+ for the Mustangs defense. They do not have to worry about that against for Nativity. This is one of those games, it's going to be a long road trip out to St. Clair for Midwest. I think this game went to overtime last year, and Nativity beat them in overtime last year.
Wow.
But this is not that Nativity team. They lost their 2 running backs. They're not quite as good this season. 2 wins are Shenandoah, who Midwest beat, and Columbia Montoursville Tech. I expect Midwest to win this one. I think they want to, obviously, this week they have Nativity. Athens is 1-5, I believe. That's coming up. Just want to get on track and get ready for the District 4 4A playoffs.
Sure. We got a couple interesting games in the Tri-Valley League this week. 3-3 Newport's headed to Mandated to take on the 3-3 Line Mountain. Line Mountain's coming off a tough loss to Williams Valley, who's one of those upper echelon Tri-Valley League teams.
This is pretty simple. Can Line Mountain stop Newport's running game? You're going to get a whole bunch of Ethan Road. The quarterback Elijah York likes to run the ball a lot. The subplot I'm sure he's sick of hearing about it. And Coach Todd Rothamel coming back to Lime Mountain where he once coached. The Buffaloes, probably had their worst season in probably 3 or 4 years last year, but were still able to beat Lime Mountain last year down at home. So I don't think the Eagles can take them lightly. This is another team that don't quite have a great read on, especially after that Juniata game. Since that Juniata game, losing to beating Millersburg and losing to Williams Valley, I think both games went as most people expected. So I think this is where we find out what how good Lime Mountain can be. I think the Eagles probably get this one, but if they can't stop that running game, it's probably going to be a long night.
Our other TVL game, Millersburg 2-4, coming off a 60-33 loss to Newport. Hosts 2-4 Tri-Valley.
Sorry, I was having flashbacks to taking the game on the phone.
Yeah. Tri-Valley's probably down compared to where it has been the past couple years, and Millersburg with 2 wins is obviously having one of its best years in recent times.
Looking at the schedules, the Bulldogs ended up with their tougher league games at the early part of the season. They've already played Williams Valley, lost to, already got smoked by Upper Dauphin as well. This Tri-Valley team is probably a little better than its record indicates. Again, said this all year, if Millersburg can stop the run and do a little bit in defending the run, they can stay in games. They did not do that last week against Newport, and it was 41-0 at the half, I think, something like that.
I think it was 41-0 after, maybe even after 3. I think Millersburg scored all 33 of their points in the fourth quarter.
No, they scored in the first half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they threw a touchdown in the first half. So maybe it was 41-7 at the half. But whatever it was, it got away quickly from them. I'm not sure if Tri-Valley has that explosiveness in their running game this season, but they're certainly going to, coached by Jeff Sampson. If you remember him down at Pine Grove, they're going to bring that wing T up to Millersburg. Going to go with Tri-Valley, but I think this is probably more of the level for Millersburg in the league this year. So it's going to be interesting if they keep it close.
And then we've got a non-conference game, 5-1 Wellsboro headed down to 0-6 Milton.
Yeah, Wellsboro's running back Adrian Hauser leads District 4 in rushing yards. Is already up over 1,200, I believe, for the season.
Wow.
Milton went up to Wellsboro last year and gave an undefeated Wellsboro team all it could handle for a half before Wellsboro was able to pull away in the second half. I think they probably have a little bit of, I think the same thing goes. You can't help but, look at Milton's record and probably take them a little lightly. And Milton's played some pretty tough teams. I don't know if, Milton will even be the worst team that Wellsboro plays this season. But
sure.
So it's probably close for half. Wellsboro probably pulls away. Wellsboro's in contention to be the 2 seed below Southern in Class 2A.
We've got one Saturday game again this week. Lewisburg 4-2, coming off a Saturday win against Bloomsburg at Selinsgrove that we talked about with the weather delays, headed to Shikellamy. Braves are coming off their first win. It's a 6 o'clock start for those of you interested in going.
Yeah, it's homecoming at Shikellamy. It's you have to think the Green Dragons are the favorite in this game, obviously, but they cannot take this Braves team lightly, especially after a victory. We've talked all season that, I thought that, Shikellamy, once they got that victory, would be a different football team. So it's going to be interesting to see how they come out on Saturday. And obviously, depending on how hurt Max Moyers is, you gotta look at how the Green Dragons bounce back from that and kind of what they do offensively. They really did They got the Ethan Spalding more involved on Saturday night, which is something that hasn't happened all season because he was sick at the beginning of the season, and that's another weapon for them. And then obviously that makes Ethan Dominic the dominant ball carrier for as long as Max is out. I think Lewisburg gets this one, but I think this is closer than people probably expect.
I think the Braves should treat it like week 1 at Danville. Hey, go 3 yards in a cloud of dust and take 12 minutes off the clock in the third quarter.
Oh, I think I think if Todd had his druthers, that's how he would do every game this season. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how those two lines match up. Both. One of the games that Lewisburg struggled against was with that Selinsgrove line, and Schick did a pretty good job of that for a half at least. So we'll see how that matchup goes on Saturday.
Okay, that's our look at our Week 7 games. Make sure to pick up Thursday's daily item to find out what's going on with Southern and Schick and Wyoming area and Holy Redeemer. Friday we'll have game night with the cover story on Shikellamy quarterback Drew Balestrini, as well as previews of other games, Todd's column and picks. Friday night you can follow along with me in the office as I update the scoreboard, and we have our live blog on the website. Saturday we'll have coverage of 10 of these games. Then Sunday you can read coverage of Lewisburg Schick, and Monday we'll have the high school football notebook.
And then Wednesday we're back here again.
Yeah, for Week 8. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys.
See ya.
GDK Development of Shamokin is a proud supporter of all local and youth sports. The Welsh family has been in business for 37 years and thanks you for supporting them and their local businesses, including Bruiser Sports Grill in Cole Township and the Elysburg and Sunbury Burger King restaurants. Again, thank you for 37 years of support, and good luck area athletes and teams this sports season from the Welsh family and GDK Development of Shamokin.